Hello, Rebecca.
Hey Scott, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm okay. It's 10 o'clock here,
Oh, where are you?
Florida.
Florida. What's in Florida?
My parents live here,
Oh,
so I'm visiting.
oh, just you, or you and your husband, or
Husband came too. He worked from
how
here.
long? How long is that?
A week, 10 days, I guess.
Oh, that's a long
I
time.
timed it with termiting my house. So,
Okay.
mm.
Uh,
So
yeah.
we're gonna have a small group, I think, today, right?
Jay is not here. Leslie is not here. So yeah, Ronnie, you, me, and I guess
Anita.
Lovey and Anita. Yeah, well, we're no longer a Brown Act committee. That's nice.
Yeah. How was weren't you you were out of town were you out of town last time?
Yes, I
Last meeting?
was. Where was I?
How was your
Oh,
trip?
that. Yes, that. So this is a wedding cruise. It was a wedding cruise with complete with my ex-wife with whom I don't speak,
Oh no.
her mother, her sister, my sister who is who is allied now with my ex-wife. So, and
Oh
with
my gosh.
my partner Sarah, and so it was just a fun time.
How did you get roped into that?
Well, my daughter and her fiance decided they wanted to get married on a cruise. So,
Oh, I see. Oh my
so
gosh.
fortunately,
That's
it was a big cruise ship. You know, it was like we were four, and my ex-wife was aft.
gosh.
Uh,
Uh,
hey,
wow.
Lovey, you're muted, Lovey, if you want to know. But so, yeah.
I didn't mean to come in on a private,
No, it's fine.
okay.
Fine. So we can't see you, Lovey. Do you want us to see you?
All right. Okay. Start video. Yeah. I'm overwhelmed.
Ah, my
Uh,
goodness, you're blinding. The light is just
oh, okay. Yeah.
you are so blind. You're whiting
Well,
out.
the sun, it's,
Oh, okay.
the Western comes in this window. I can put the
Yeah.
blinds down.
Hey, Anita.
Hi.
How
Are
are
you still
you?
in Florida?
I am still in Florida, yes.
Oh, God.
It's 10 o'clock, and last night I listened to the planning commission. That started at 10, and I finally, or no, yeah, 10. I finally gave up at 12:30. I guess it went on for another hour and a half.
Oh,
Oh
God.
gosh. Wow.
Yeah. I hope this one's gonna not be long because I'm
Yeah.
already sipping my chamomile tea.
Oh, for bedtime?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, let's see, it is 6:59. I suspect Ronnie will join, so let's wait 1 minute.
God, kudos to him and Jason for reading that 100-page thing from where was it?
I
Which one?
think it
100
was
pages?
San Mateo, 200 pages. Yeah.
200. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I dug through that one. I kind of started skipping stuff.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
so tedious. My God. The whole history of greenhouse gases. Jeez.
The Well, it is 7, so I suspect Ronnie will join us, but we could go ahead and get started. Oh, Dave Cardinal's with us.
There.
Okay,
Good
good.
enough.
Um, So let's call the meeting to order. In terms of a quorum, we only need a quorum if we're going to vote. I think we do have a quorum in any case. Is that right? No, let's see. How many?
Yes, yes.
Is that the Golden Gate
Sure.
Bridge behind you?
We do have a quorum in case we need it.
Yes.
But
Yes.
so let's just do roll call, I mean, we can see who's there. So Rebecca, if you don't mind noting who's here, that would be great.
Yep, I have.
Okay. Oral communication. So we can talk, I mean, now that we're a non-Brown Act committee, we can talk about anything we need to, that even things that are not on the agenda. I didn't add a bunch of stuff to the agenda, like updates on this and that, just because I wanted us to have enough time to devote to the climate action plans that we reviewed. So, but I mean, if there's new interesting news about anything from related to our committee, let's use this time now to update one another. So, is there anything in that category?
Well, I've attended a couple more lectures or webinars that I thought might be interesting, just to briefly brief everyone on real quick. One was with 3C Ren, and it was called Detailing High Performance Walls and Roof Assemblies. And I found it really interesting about what sorts of options you have when you're building to make sure your house is air sealed and that you're dealing with vapor. Because if your house is not air sealed, what happens is vapor can move from either outside in or inside out, and that tends to bring pollution with it. It could bring smoke, it could bring dirt in, all sorts of stuff you don't want coming into your assemblies. And one of the more critical ones is it can bring moisture in or out. It could be moisture from your kitchen, your bathroom, or it could be moisture outside coming in through your walls. And that can lead to potential for mold and rot within your assemblies. So this went through all of that. It discussed what the options are for high performance, and she provided a lot of resources for where architects in particular could get drawings for the proper to provide information to the contractors for the exact way they want to have an assembly created. And she did mention that all this information is available, but that you really, when you work with a contractor, you really have to specify exactly what you want. And the state provides you with some sort of checklist to make sure that so that when you would go eventually to have a HERS rating, which seems to be required for the new for a lot of the issues for the new 2022 energy code that started being implemented last year, you're already prepared because the contractor's already gone through that checklist to make sure everything's on the list. So it's going to become more and more important as more and more of these homes get built and are required to follow the new Title 24 measures. And that also turns back a little bit to what Ronnie had sent us an email about the energy, all electric energy thing being found not legal. So I think Title 24 is going to help with that to a certain extent, because what people are required to do is there's a whole bunch of mandatory measures that you have to do. And then there's some prescriptive measures that you can choose to do, but you have to add up all the points to reach something. So in that respect, we could kind of influence that sort of thing by requiring certain, higher numbers of points or whatever. That would be very difficult to meet with using anything gas. But so that's for another conversation. And then the other talk I went to was with Passive House California, an architect by the name of Bronwyn Berry, who's an expert on policy. In addition to being an architect, she was doing a case study of a home she designed down in Carmel, and she was kind of going through all of the aspects of this home, whether that was part of the design to make it a passive house. And if you're not that familiar with passive house standards, it's like, I don't know, tenfold more strict than a typical like Title 24, for example. And so what's really key is that the home be super insulated, super high performance windows, no thermal bridges, great ventilation. And then a measure that I had not really thought about yet and didn't realize that Passive House now includes, or maybe just this particular architect was being more important about this, or maybe because it was in Carmel, was that the idea of making the house also smoke tight, which is important for us now. You know, unfortunately, as we experienced a few years ago with that horrible fire up north that came down here and made our skies all red. You know, you could smell it. It was terrible, the air. So making a home airtight also will help make it smoke tight, which is really important now, unfortunately. And she came up with, there were some lessons she provided at the very end that I thought were quite interesting. She had hired a consultant to do a thermal bridge certification on the house before it was completed. I don't remember exactly at what stage it was done. And she considered that to be one of the most necessary actions that she could take, because the consultant did find one specific point in her structure that did have a thermal bridge, and they were able to correct it obviously before the home was closed up. And it's a sort of situation like I talked about before about the air infiltration and the moisture infiltration. At that point, had the moisture gone through, you know, over course of years, it would have essentially created either mold or rot. And this happened to be on some major structural beams that were supporting the house. So eventually that could have resulted in rot. And compromise the structure. So she found it extraordinarily valuable to have thermal bridge calculations and certification done. And that is something we could think about for the very future for our REACH codes, is to have that kind of a requirement for homes. And then the other thing that came up that was really interesting, and this is the second time I've heard it in that many weeks, is that photovoltaics actually currently have very high embodied carbon. And that's due to the glass that's needed to make the panels, because glass is made in a very high furnace type factories. And so those generate enormous amounts of greenhouse gas emissions. So it's an interesting concept about this idea of, you have a very high embodied carbon in the production of these things, but yet they help you dramatically for your operational long-term carbon. And so the best strategy to do is to essentially build your house to something approaching a Passive House standard with a super insulated core and a completely air sealed structure, so that you require smaller appliances for your heating and cooling, and thus smaller photovoltaic arrays on top of your roof. So therefore you're reducing your embodied carbon that way while also getting the benefits of it. So I thought that was a really interesting concept that I had never heard of before. I hadn't known that before.
Did they say what the energy payback time is for solar panels currently? How many years of operation are needed to cover the embodied energy content?
She didn't go into that. No.
Yeah, I've heard.
But that is an interesting idea to find out.
Yeah. A year or two or three, but anyway, okay.
So anyway, it was interesting.
Okay, so Ronnie, we, because we're not a Brown Act committee anymore, we can really talk about anything we need to, and thought we would just use this open communications period to, give each other updates on anything that is happening. I did have one question, Anita. I was curious, what kind of feedback have we gotten on the green waste write-up?
Yeah, interesting. I haven't gotten any feedback. I've been looking in PV Forum because that's usually where I see, oh, good info, or, some comment. I haven't seen a single thing, but I don't see every post. So I'm wondering if anybody else saw anything. I've gotten zero feedback. I
I
put
don't
a
remember
little-
seeing the posting.
Yeah,
Did-
I
It
didn't
was in
see
the
it
last
either.
It was in the last
It
newsletter.
was only in Carrie's newsletter. See, I think we should also,
Oh,
in
we should
addition,
post
send
it
it
separately,
separately to
Mm.
the town
Oh.
from the sustainability account. I mean, that, I would recommend
Yeah.
that.
Is that
Yeah.
something
Yeah, I
you
never
could
saw it.
do, Rebecca?
Sorry?
Is that something that you could do in the next
Uh-huh,
number of
I
days?
could, yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
Well, I don't know, I'm traveling tomorrow, so coming back home, so this weekend maybe if I remember. Someone might need, if you can remind me this weekend.
Yeah, I would ask Carrie, but I have a feeling this is the non-working Friday. I'm not positive about that. Can Carrie do it?
I thought she
Um,
did it. I thought the newsletter went out as one item and then a separate announcement on PV Forum went out, but is that not true?
I saw the newsletter as a PV forum item. That's how I normally see them.
So maybe that's my misunderstanding. I guess the sustainability tip or whatever as a separate item doesn't go out on PV Forum unless we put it out.
Unless we,
So-
yeah, I thought she was going to do both also, and I haven't seen it.
But I think it's
It could also
probably-
be there might have been a staff change or something, because the newsletter this month went out under someone else's name, not Carrie. So I don't know if maybe that there was a,
Well, that's
What
What do you
it.
mean though, Rebecca? I thought that you send out the sustainability.
I have in the past, yeah, and I can
Yeah,
certainly do
I
the.
mean, if we want it under the sustainability Gmail account, then it needs to be us, not Carrie.
Ah,
And I think we can do that now because we're not a Brown Act committee, because before, they kind of clamped down and Jeremy only wanted information from our committees coming through them, and they got all strict about it.
Oh, but we were
with the-
the whole time.
Haven't
we've
you
been
always
sending
sent
out
it out?
we've been sending out sustainability tips without their review for the whole past year. So I think it's fine.
The same thing happened to me on the write-up about the water meters. I thought it was gonna go on the forum and it went to Carrie and it went into the newsletter. Same thing happened to me.
So the water meter write-up never went out on PV Forum as its own separate thing?
No,
Yeah,
it
so we
went,
oughta-
Carrie put it did when Carrie posts like you say, she posts the newsletter on the forum. But it, as a thing standing alone saying, my experience with changing my water meter, I thought it was gonna go on the forum that way and it never did.
I think it's really important we send them out separately because otherwise people will see, town newsletter and they may think, well, that's a bunch of stuff I don't want to hear about. But a very specific thing about the water meter.
Exactly. And it was like, it was focused towards the people, to each individual. Here's what happened to me. It lost its impact, I think, in being a Portola Valley, whatever you call it, newsletter item.
So, Rebecca, if you'd be willing to do both the green waste and the water meter, maybe not at the same time, might want to spread them out by a
Okay,
week or two.
next
but
week, yeah,
Do you?
or the
do
week
you-
after, yeah,
Do you want
next couple weeks.
I'm happy
Uh-huh.
to send you a reminder on the weekend if you want.
That would be great, actually.
Okay, all right, so let's do that. Dave Cardinal, you have a hand up. What's up?
Oh, I just want to echo, I would not rely on the town because they have their own limits to where they can promote and where they put things, and PV Forum is what it is. So I would absolutely take ownership and post, we get 20 posts a day for lost dogs or whatever. So
Yeah,
I would just post to PV Forum directly if I was you. So that'd be my advice.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we will do that. Okay. So this weekend we'll send out the green waste one and then maybe, I don't know, a week later, send out the, duplicate the water meter one. So,
Okay,
okay, let's see, other things. We didn't include your item on the agenda, Ronnie, the one that you wrote us about, but if you had any update on that, you want to talk about it for a minute, we could do that. Or we could wait. The electrification, limitations on, and the
Yeah.
has, I mean, it seems like a bigger topic, so if it's okay, we could just do that as a separate item next time.
Sure, that's fine. I could give a different comment that I actually spoke with Sharif, the town manager, um uh, 2 days ago maybe, or yesterday. And he mentioned, so the town council had their goal setting workshop. And I had sent in a public comment, like kind of advocating for climate action plan.
Oh, great.
Prioritizing that. And so he said that that was one of the things that they have on their list and that they really do want to prioritize it. Yeah, and he said that, he cares about it a lot, and the town council prioritized it, and then also, like, they're obviously going through a lot of staffing issues, but I mean, I think it is a priority to try to hire a replacement for Brandy in some form. I think they still haven't totally figured out what roles they're gonna kind of have. But yeah, so that should help, I think.
Great. Anything else for this open communication time? If not, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is basically the minutes or introductions. I don't think we have any presentations, announcements. I don't think we have any of that either. So the minutes from February 15th, any suggested changes or additions to the minutes?
I noticed one typo at the very end where I put I somehow mistyped the date for this meeting. So I'm off by a digit.
Yeah, okay, we can fix that. Not that it matters at this point, but okay, so is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of February 15th meeting.
Okay, with the one change Rebecca noted. Anybody second?
I'll second.
Okay, everybody in favor of approving? Aye.
I
Okay, so that's everybody. So we have approved the minutes. Okay, moving on to the business. So the climate action plan. So, and there are a couple of people from the public on the call. So I just want to just say something about how we will do this. I mean, the way this normally works in our meetings, in all the town meetings, is that the committee will talk about a topic, and then at the end, we would invite any clarifying questions or comments from the community members present. And so that means we're going to basically talk about the climate action plans that we reviewed. And so for those others on the call, if you have something you'd like to add, it will be a while from now. It will be close, be about an hour from now, because that's the only agenda item on our the meeting agenda. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll open it up for any comments from people on the call at the end. So let's launch into it. So there were 3 climate action plans. We got the feedback from Jay, and I'm not sure exactly how to do this. I think maybe we could just go around to each committee member and ask for, comments, pros and cons that you saw in the ones for Woodside. I guess it was Woodside, Menlo Park, and San Mateo, right? And just if somebody's already made the comment, then let's not belabor it. And does somebody want to first describe Jay's remarks? I can put that up. We could share that and look at it for a minute. And then jump into it with other inputs.
do we also want to eventually include those with the minutes, just his whole write-up
Yeah, I think so, since that's his.
as an attachment? Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, we could look at his first. Maybe we'll look at his at the end. What do you think?
I would start there.
Start there?
That way we don't repeat ourselves over what he came
Okay,
up with.
so I'm gonna share my screen. And that is the screen, and then I'm gonna look for the where are they? Oh, it's his was an email. I'm sorry. Can you see this?
Can you, yeah, make it a little bigger? Yeah, that's good.
Oops.
Is that too big?
Not for me.
Okay. Okay, so these are Jay's comments, and you know, let's look at them, and people just jump in and say what you think.
Okay, can I say something right off the bat I liked about Jay's thing?
Mhm.
Was the questionnaire idea or the inventory, whatever you want to call it. I think that's a great idea. I agree with him there. But the specifics of how to do it and how to get the people that never participate in this kind of thing to get them to participate, because they're usually the people that need to be included. And you know, maybe they're busy and traveling and this and that, but that's the whole point, is they're generating a lot of climate change particulates, if you will. Anyway, I just trying to think of a way to sort of do an inventory or a questionnaire of the town and try to get at least 80% participation. I think we ought to brainstorm about that to get, so we know sort of what the ground is like here.
Well, I actually think the way it's done is not so much by querying each individual family or household, is that they use a software program called RICAPS, which enables them to pull off the data from PG&E, PCE, probably the water usage, the garbage tonnage they get from green waste. So they get an overall usage for the town itself for those major items. And then there's another way that I didn't explore too deeply for figuring out what the miles, the vehicle miles traveled was. They have some other methodology that's used to kind of estimate that.
Can they look up how many EVs are in town, or do we need people?
Right, they look up that, they get that data from the DMV. They
Mhm.
get, so they get they have a variety of sources for a bunch of the data that covers a lot of the things, like, and then the permits, for example, permits for
Right.
EV charging stations, permits for solar panels, permits for batteries. They get all that data. And then that creates sort of a general thing for the community. But like you said, Levy, they don't get certain things, like we don't know how much somebody travels by air.
And we're not gonna
We don't
get
know how
it.
much food people eat. We
And
don't know.
we're not gonna get that either. I mean, I just think, we ought to, I mean, I like Jay's point a lot, and I think that he is correct that it's individual consumption patterns that drive a lot of this. But this kind of report, for a city has to be based on data, hard data. It's not gonna be based on self-reporting from individuals. It's not gonna be based on questionnaires. It's gotta be based on actual data that you can really nail down. And so, and also, yeah, I don't see any mechanism by which we're going to, we could, if there were some general, way to convert the income levels of the people of Portola Valley, if that were known, into consumption numbers, then that's fine. But then how would you know whether that had changed? People might still be just as rich as they were before, but they may have made decisions to fly less. Well, that has to be based on actual data. It can't be based on self-reporting and questionnaires. There's just no way this kind of town official document is gonna have that stuff in it. So I
And
just,
then also you have to think about what I found interesting in this, as I read through these different plans, is that the actual defined climate action plan, which is defined by the CEQA, I guess, and the state government, the actual format of it, they provide us with sort of, I don't know if they're countywide or statewide. There's certain statewide parameters that are provided to us, and those include like transportation numbers. So airfare doesn't technically fall into our Portola Valley Climate Action Plan. It falls into a bigger category that's monitored at the county or the state level, and then we just get a portion of it. And I don't know if the portion I assume it's based on population, number of heads. So technically we don't, it's included only as a line item, as a per capita person or whatever in the climate action plan, but it's not, I don't think there's any mechanism to say, oh, we're all super rich in Portola Valley. We all fly on private planes all over the place. There's no way to tailor a bigger chunk of that greenhouse gas emissions to us based on not that I'm aware of, based on our income, our affluence or whatever. So,
I agree. And one community could be affluent and very conservative in their travel for greenhouse gas mitigation. Another community could be super, luxurious in how many trips they take, and we're not going to be able to collect that data and include it in this kind of a report. There's just no way. So
Is
I guess I would
the
Rebecca,
the
question,
line item that you mentioned, is
I would
that
question why we're collecting data.
why we're collecting data?
No, why we're collecting data that we have no way to actually influence or change. There's no action associated with, how much people in Portola Valley fly, for instance. There's nothing we can do about it. So I guess one of my questions was, what would be the point of collecting data that we couldn't influence? Same thing with diet. I mean, food waste, yes, but what people eat, whether they're vegetarians or vegans or, I don't know that it's the town's purview or responsibility, that's the wrong word too, to influence some of these things. Others are low-hanging fruit and we can make a
Behavioral
lot.
stuff, I agree. I don't think it is, they're not going to take that on as their purview. And, so
I have that question in general, should our climate action plan focused on things that we can actually, or things we can actually influence, or ordinance,
yes, that's the point of it. Yeah.
Like
It's an
planning.
action.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
an action plan. It's what we can, which is why also another interesting thing is the number of EVs doesn't count towards your greenhouse gas emission reductions. Only thing would count is if your community buys more EVs than the statewide whatever target. Otherwise, you don't get to count your EVs in your, if you're each year you're buying a certain number of EVs in your community and it's at the statewide target, then you don't get to count it as a reduction.
Well, I wonder a little bit about that, Rebecca, because not EVs, but just taking transportation and the fact that all these towns are putting the transportation in their community into their climate action plan, and they are taking credit for the fact that the state mandates on fuel efficiency, or federal mandates on fuel efficiency, are causing it to to get better over time, and they're counting that in their total. So,
Yeah, that's what I saw too. They did seem to be counting the EVs.
so in fact, some of the biggest changes in these towns, what they're claiming is the effect of the state level requirements and mandates. I mean, some of it's town specific, but a lot of it is, you know, is broader than that, state or federal, which is fine, but they're baking that into their progress, as it were, into what they claim as their progress. Just okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll have to look up again what my notes were about that concept, because it's,
So I would be, okay, so I made a pretty assertive statement that there's just no way that these behavioral things or questionnaires of people or tracking how much they're actually eating or spending or whatever, none of that's going to happen. And I don't know whether, and I think but it's still a wonderful idea, and it's, you know, if it were possible, it would be important, but I see it as completely impossible. I don't know. Does anybody see that differently?
um,
So
no.
is this thing, this climate action plan, I guess, is it aspirational? Is that it? Or is there a mandate from the state or somewhere that we, you know, have to, you know, fulfill certain categories with things? Or is this sort of a statement of aspirations that we'd like
No,
to
it's
see
there
happen?
are requirements to, I don't know how binding in terms of penalties and such, but you know, going from 2005 to 2020, reduction by 15%. And then another level of reduction by 2030, 2050. But so, and I think the towns are taking it seriously, and they're saying, you know, for those things that we can count, where we can get good data and where we can take responsibility, or where the state or the federal government's taking responsibility, we are going to ratchet down by at least that amount, the amount that's stated as a target. So it's
And
not.
is there like a builder's remedy if we don't make the cutoffs or if we don't make the goals?
I think it's closer to aspirational, but like
Okay.
you
Hmm.
said
That's,
first.
you know, I'm just trying to get a fix on what the tone of this thing has got to be, and, you know,
Well, if you look at Woodsides and all of the 29 items or whatever they had as in their climate action plan, and then I thought they did a good job of monitoring, you know, how they measured it, and the measures they used and whatever, and pretty much all of them said in bright, you know, bold, will not meet the target for 2030, will not meet the target. Almost every single one of them. And then
That
I
was in
thought the
their
one that was
progress
interesting to
report, or?
me was the most interesting was that they had, and I like this idea, there's going to be a lot of pushback from realtors, was to put in place, and I see this in France, for every home that's sold, you have to put in place a energy audit for the property before you sell the home. And this was for Woodside, they put it down as optional. And you know, the comment, the comment in the column for where they're at was not started yet. So clearly there was nobody was ready to go battle up against real estate agents. But I find I've been looking at real estate in France, and they have a very thorough thing with like graded A, B, C, D, E, F. I don't know how far G maybe, or H. And I think I don't know all the rules because I haven't looked into it really too much, but I don't think you're even allowed to sell a home that's below a certain level in that gradient without fixing some of the stuff. I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure how you can go about selling some of those medieval chateaus in that situation, but
I mean, the thing that's interesting about that is that then, you know, having a good score makes your home more valuable, right? And so that helps incentivize people to make upgrades. You know, for home
presumably,
value.
but I don't know that people look at it that way.
Yeah.
So, in terms of process, so I mean, I think we've discussed to some degree, I think what was one of, Jay's most significant and important, inputs about things that are missing in these, inventories. And, we can come back to that. He has a lot of other detailed points on each of the three, plans that we looked at, and I wonder whether, for those detailed ones, we could come back to his comments after we each go through and just sort of reflect on the three plans and what we saw, rather than going into the detailed items that in his write-up. Does that seem reasonable?
Sure.
So anybody want to start? Give us a rundown of what you thought of the three and how they relate to what Portola Valley should do. Anita, do you want to start?
I don't want to start.
Okay, anybody
Since
else?
you gave me the option.
I mean,
Well,
Okay.
I took a look at more detail, San Mateo's plan initially, and there were certain measures that had a much huger influence and impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, dramatically different than some of the other measures.
Yep.
And some of the other measures involve quite a lot of effort and work and money and stuff with much lower paybacks. So I wonder, let me see if I could find my notes. I started getting bogged down here with how long that thing was. But certainly the building, retrofitting existing buildings to make them all electric had a huge impact on reducing. Obviously new buildings, but we're already kind of covered with that, I think, in terms of regulations. Well, maybe, depending on that lawsuit. I don't remember exactly what else was in my notes here, but
Woodside did the same thing. They called out three of their 20 or whatever, 25 items. Three of those items alone would account for like 80% of the potential reduction. And, oh, sorry, 80% of their component of the potential reduction. So they basically differentiated between what the state measures would accomplish, which was like 22%, and what the town measures would accomplish, which was 1.8%. It was a huge differential. So the state requirements are already going to drive a certain kind of decrease. And of the 1.8% that they could control, there were only three measures that would take care of 80% of that. So it's similar, I think. Is that now, Rebecca, in the case you're talking about, or did they include the state ones like transportation, or was it just the city of San Mateo that they counted?
they had everything on there. They had the main issues there. So I don't know. I didn't get into whether or not they were state-based or not. I don't think they split it out. Maybe, I don't know. It got so long that. So they have, here I have it I have their table. It's on chapter 3, page 50 and 51.
You want to show
So they
it?
had like all electric existing buildings. That was over by 2040, a 221,000 reduction. All electric new construction by 2045 was 47,000. And then non-residential energy efficiency retrofits. So we don't have too much non-residential except for the schools, I guess. And then electric vehicle charging infrastructure, 70,000, but I don't think that would have that big an impact for us because we don't have through traffic, really. People aren't driving to Portola Valley to charge their car. Let's see, what else did they have? A big one. Clean fuel and vehicle emissions. I don't remember what that was reference to. Transit-oriented development. Again, this is something that not too relevant to us since we don't seem to have any public transportation. Transportation demand management. Again, this is one of these that's really difficult for Portola Valley because this is essentially saying if you develop a complex in our town, like the complex we're considering at Ford Field, you have to commit to fewer vehicle miles traveled, and that's just not practical for Portola Valley. You know, you have to have a car to do anything in Portola Valley pretty much, or something, electric bike, or maybe, but to get to your job, it'll be a bit of a challenge not having a car. Expanded recycling service. I don't think San Mateo uses green waste, and green waste I don't think we can improve much on green waste. Waste awareness and source reduction. I guess we could provide more awareness with, like we have, like the PSA and stuff, so that might help. And then they had a big chunk, 9,890, from using alternative fuel, lawn and garden equipment. And we've already passed that thing for gas
Leaf
stringers and blowers and whatnot. So, we've done a lot of the stuff that they were finding tremendous decreases in greenhouse gas emissions. So I think it's good, but I think the biggest one for us is the all electric buildings, and then the just energy efficiency of buildings, what I keep talking about.
I think we will, it's too bad that the climate action plan wasn't written at the same time as some of these other cities, because, for Portola Valley, like 2009, because then we would have been able to look forward and take credit for, the electric building codes and things like that.
I think those things should be mentioned in the, in the beginning, how they have the, this is what we did before.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we
And I don't
should.
know whether for the climate action plan for Portola Valley, would they use the same time period? They would say, here's what it was in 2005, here's what it is in 2020, and there's this much decrease, and the reasons are, and we get credit for all the things the state has done, plus all the things Portola Valley has done.
Right, yes, because the state mandates that we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions based on technically the 1990, our emissions from 1990, which they rewrote as 2005, but then it's a calculation, so it comes to the same thing. But what I don't understand really is where we get the data for 1990 or even 2005, but obviously it must be available somewhere. So,
Well, it would have been better to, do that analysis at the time, but, because it's a lot later now, but I'm assuming you can still get data from PG&E and everyone else.
right, and I think the RICAPS, this software program that Brandy was using, that everybody uses, I'm sure it contains that kind of information.
So there's a really interesting, chart of, while we don't have a complete climate action plan, Brandy, I think, produced a whole bunch of data that's actually part of this website of all the different cities in the Bay Area. And I don't know if people are aware of that, but I'd like to share that, because it means a lot of the data, some of the data is there. Some of this stuff has been analyzed. We just don't know how much of it.
Yeah, that would be great.
Let me find.
How did you get that? Did Brandy send that
just
over?
by looking around, I just looked around. Let me see if I can find it. Just one second. Okay, yeah, here. Not that. I'm
Do
sorry.
we know who's gonna write this for us? I mean, are we going to hire somebody that has a job description, kind of like Brandy? Is the town gonna hire somebody with skills to do this? I just see this as a big job, unless you really know what you're doing.
I agree. I think it's a huge amount of work.
It sounded like Woodside spearheaded it through their sustainability committee with Jason, Debbie's son, Mendelson. spearheaded it, but he was working with his town, Woodside Town, and they managed to get grants to pay for part of the work. So whoever had a consultants or whatever they were using got, they were able to pay them to do that. I don't know that that kind of money is available now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that was
hmm.
my takeaways I was going to mention is that, yeah, in the Woodside one, I think also in the San Mateo one, they somewhat described the process. And I think in both cases, they had different organizations from like San Mateo County and, who sort of helped set up I think they worked across many jurisdictions and like had a framework for developing these plans. And yeah, so just from like a practical standpoint, it seemed like if we wanted to push forward with a climate action plan, it wouldn't necessarily be something that, we just went off and did, but we would need to like, work with one of those organizations who would probably do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone would have to be able to use that RICAP software, because I take a look at it and it's essentially a huge Excel spreadsheet, and I didn't want to spend time trying to figure out how to use it.
So here's the San Mateo County Energy Watch data. And so, it's basically it's all the cities. And what was interesting to me is, it's Woodside, yes, which has a climate action plan. And if you burrow into that, you see graphs. Where does it come on? Yeah, there you go. 2010 to 2015 data, natural gas consumption. Okay, so you think, wow, Woodside has that. That's because they have a climate action plan. But then lo and behold, Portola Valley has that. Whoops. Right. Portola Valley. The data for us is in there. So Brandy did this. And so, and it's a lot of stuff. So it's a lot of the analysis that's necessary for the climate action plan is right here. Through 2015, natural gas, electricity, changes in incentives and savings, blah, blah, blah. I mean, a bunch of stuff. So solar power installations, registered vehicles in the town, hybrid vehicles. So a lot of this is, she was working on it, and I guess it just didn't get to closure.
Are you saying, I mean, that site that you were looking at seemed to be all of San Mateo County. Are you saying that she was doing all of it, or the Portola Valley part
No.
of
She
it?
was she was contributing the Portola Valley data piece, which is then being cast in this uniform format for all the cities in San Mateo County.
Just
Can
out
you
of
put that
curiosity, how do you know
link?
that she was doing that rather than they were pulling it from some common place?
Well, that's a great question. That is a great question.
I know she was working. She had hired an intern to work with that RICAP program for several
Well, that
years,
was
right?
right. That was for our climate.
That was
Right.
more recent though, wasn't it? This is stuff
Yeah.
that's been in here for quite a while. So I don't know, Ronnie, actually, you're right. Maybe the county just grabbed this data for all the cities and created, because they probably have access to all of it.
I mean, that would seem more likely to me, given just the overview page that you had that seemed like, had a click through on every town. I would
Yeah,
be
okay,
surprised if each town was like providing their own data rather than.
fair point, fair
Yeah.
point. Okay, that's a good point. I
Mm.
guess
Can you
though,
put sorry, can you put the link to that in the chat?
yes, I will. So yeah, that's a good point, Ronnie, but I guess it does still mean though that somebody's got pulled the data for many of these years, and maybe San Mateo County has it for Portola Valley for, all the way to the present. And, it just needs to be consolidated and built into a climate action plan. Let's see, I want to stop sharing. I don't know where the sharing thing is. What happened? Oh, there, stop share. Okay, sorry, thanks. Chat, here we go.
For some reason, I'm not able to chat or see the chat, and I think it's because I have a new computer. So, oh, there.
So,
Huh, okay. I just can't chat, but I can read chat.
so there's the link.
Okay, thanks.
So, okay, so Rebecca, you want to just continue and talk about each of the towns and what you observed?
Oh, the the chat, this Zoom is such a pain in the rear. It doesn't allow you to cut and
Well,
paste out of
Yeah, I
chat.
can't copy it.
Ah,
Can you click on it though? I think you can click on the
Ah.
link
oh, yeah.
and then you can
That's-
open it up in a browser and grab it that way.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take notes at the same time as talking here, which is a little bit challenging. Okay, yes, great, that worked. So let me look at my notes real quick here for my notes. Yeah, I mean, the things that I see that we can have an impact on are the all-electric existing homes. That's a big area that we haven't really even pursued very much. Um, obviously, we already got the all-electric new homes, though we have to figure out how to get that to work. And then the energy efficiency retrofits, which is the whole thing I was talking about, the extra insulation, the air sealing, the reducing thermal bridges, better air quality windows, that we can have an impact on, both through ordinances and through education. And then I don't know if there's more garden equipment that we can continue to put an ordinance about. And then water use, we can continue to work with that. This year, maybe not as critical. But we'll see if next year we get such a bounty of water or not. But, discouraging the lawns, just encouraging drought tolerant planting, that sort of thing. So there's a bunch of things that we can put in our climate action plan and monitor our use of them, monitor whether they work or not. We've already started the whole thing with the waste, the composting and the wasting. Though I noticed on one of the plans, I don't know which city it was, the composting had practically no impact on greenhouse gas emissions, but I don't know what they were measuring, or maybe they don't have green waste. So, or maybe they hadn't implemented yet the 1383. So, let's see. Yeah, I mean, just getting rid of natural gas, which is going to be a struggle, given that some people are really attached to it, and some people really feel that they have to rely on it for security and safety in the event of a power outage. That I think that will be somewhat of a heavy lift, but it's so dramatic having people go to all electric that, I think we need to push that. And those are my notes about it. Yeah.
Okay, good, thanks. Anybody else want to go next?
I can go.
Okay, yeah, go for it, Ronnie.
Yeah, so I guess I already kind of jumped in and mentioned like my kind of takeaway from a practical standpoint that, we'd need to work with some kind of county organization, and we probably need to have someone like Brandy to help drive it, if we do, want to have a climate action plan. I also, kind of like Rebecca touched on, I think, found myself wondering a bit to what extent we actually need a climate action plan, or like what we're missing out on by not having it. Just because, like we've mentioned, like the main things that they seem to be deriving benefit from are the electric vehicles and the conversions to all electric, where both of those are especially the electrical vehicles, I think are, you know, kind of more driven by state mandates. Also some of the conversion to all electric. And then also, you know, even without a climate action plan, we've been able to make fine progress on having the reach codes and stuff to encourage the all electric construction. So part of what it seems to be useful for is just kind of having, you know, the sort of establishing the baseline data and having the tracking, which you know seems useful to just sort of have that nice roll up of where we're at, where our emissions are coming from, and you know the breakdown, and then maybe tracking over time of what how effective things are to improve it. And what else was I going to say? In general, I liked the Menlo Park one, that it seemed very more approachable to me than like the San Mateo one. I mean, Jay had the comment that it was like 200 pages shorter,
Yeah.
which was nice.
Yes.
And yeah, also, I don't know that this is a comparison of one versus the other, but like the Menlo Park one, it did seem very practical. Like they had these very concrete steps that they thought they could take within like, you know, the some number of years period. Well, after saying that, like their first one was like try to achieve complete 90 or 95% disconnect from gas by like 2030, which I did see their progress update that they are not on track to do that. That seems very ambitious. But I guess aside from that one, I mean, I think some of the other ones were pretty approachable, concrete things that they could go out and do. And probably the same for Woodside and San Mateo. I didn't delve too much into like all the different pieces and programs, although one that caught my eye that hadn't really occurred to me was the mention that just having trees for shade could do a lot to, you know, basically reduce the need for cooling in the summer. And yeah, I just hadn't actually thought about that too much.
Except that from a fire safety standpoint, it, you know, depending on the exact placement, it gets a little tricky, right?
That
You
and
don't want
also I
too
guess it
close
makes
to the house.
it also makes it hard to have solar. I actually have a lot of shade, so it makes solar fairly impractical for me. But I guess I'm benefiting from you know, the shade not heating the house as much.
Mhm.
So I want to just comment, Dave, I do see your hand up. I think we're going to have to wait for comments and questions until the end of this agenda item, though. So that's still yet to come. So I will come back to you when the committee has wrapped up its discussion of the topic. Okay, anything else, Ronnie?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, I like, I agree with you that, you know, Portola Valley has made great progress even without a climate action plan. And so, yeah, one could wonder why have one? I do think getting the baseline and then tracking progress is really important, because otherwise we can, you know, we can do these things, and if we have a goal of, if we believe there's some goal that's necessary, like, you know, 15% reduction by 2020, and, you know, 50%, whatever, you know, whatever those numbers are, it's just there's no feedback mechanism on the town to either step it up, take more aggressive actions, or, you know, promote certain programs more, or whatever, unless there's that data. So I think the gathering of the data and the annual reporting is a pretty critical thing to keep it going. So.
I can give my comments now.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I also liked Menlo Parks because I thought it was approachable. And if we're going to be, if we can recommend a format, my questions were mostly, how does ours get done? Because I guess I'm still the newest person on the committee, at least on, I mean, on this particular Zoom. And so I don't have the history. All I know is the climate action plan showed up on every single agenda. Can we get this from Brandy? Can we get this from Brandy? And we never did, and then Brandy left. And so I'm not real certain about the history of the climate action plan, but it's really nice to know that some data was collected. I don't know whether or not Brandy did it. And how, I guess I still have the question, and I can't remember, maybe I've already asked it or we discussed it, but did Brandy give us any artifacts at all? I mean, do we have any? Nothing.
No, we've got nothing, which is really unfortunate. And maybe,
Really?
maybe at this point we could get it from Sharif, but I mean, she did all that work with an intern, and I think it would be wonderful if our committee could
Just-
look at even interim results
Yeah.
and I think the concern was just that, you know, if it's only partially baked, that it might have implications for the town if it gets out there that would be, difficult or whatever, but I think it'd be great if our committee were trusted enough to get that data and look at it. And so I think we ought to make an approach to
Yeah.
that.
And then if we have any influence about format and also data that gets collected, by that I mean, first of all, if we could suggest a format that's more like Menlo Parks. I thought Woodside was, it kind of crossed my eyes to read there. They went into so much detail on these topics, which is intellectually interesting, but I'm not sure what purpose it served on some of the items that they were tracking. They went into the weeds, but I'm not sure what good that did, except for people who like the weeds. And so format and also the things to target. I would hope that we could influence the actual items that we're talking about measuring to be Portola Valley based, as opposed to somebody who has 280 running through it, or 101 through it, or it has a landfill. It's just keep it to the, and maybe we can state up front that these are the things we don't have, and so we're not even gonna measure them or talk about them because we don't have highways through our town. And it would, I'm wondering about our LEED certification, if that has any benefit for us, that as far as, I mean, the town center, it started out as good as it could get back when it was built, which the year escapes me, but does that have any? I mean, it's worth mentioning, I think, that our town center was built to LEED standards, and therefore, this part of the town buildings, and I think those are all the town buildings, right? Started out at this baseline. We didn't have to retrofit older buildings like Woodside has or San Mateo has. We didn't have to do a lot of the work that they had to do to get there. We started out with that baseline for the town. And then, going back and collecting the data on the things we've already done, I think is really important, because we've had no climate action plan, but yet we've done the work in so many areas. And so to just capture that, and maybe it's captured in the data, but it should be captured in the narrative too, which is why I'm kind of wondering who's going to write this, because it really, it should be in conjunction with somebody who has all that history of the town. And, I certainly don't have it, but it's a little tough now with so many people gone, but we definitely should go back and look at history. What else? Oh, and no, I don't have that. What other comments? So for things that, examples of things to target, the electric conversions in the town, the amount of electricity, I guess, or the amount of, I'm sorry, natural gas, I guess, could be measured and tracked, and some sort of a target put on that. Maybe energy or electrical conversions could be tracked. Homes that went all electric. Number of heat pumps installed in the town.
Mhm.
Do we probably have that in permitting?
Mhm.
I would
Permitting
think
people
so,
know that.
yeah.
So yeah, mining the data that we've got. I had a question on how we do that, and I think Rebecca's already covered that. Yeah, so my main question was, how is it gonna be used and who's gonna write it? What kind of background does the person have who's gonna be writing it?
Great, thanks.
Mm,
I can go next. One thing I really, well, yeah, the Woodside one I thought was good and then had so much detail, but yeah, it was very difficult to go through it. And I think this would be a great document that if it were accessible to the public, that the public, that it would be nice to have it be short enough that the public could read it and get a real sense of how Portola Valley is doing and what the big initiatives are that are making a difference. One thing I really liked about the San Mateo one was that everything was put in absolute units, but also in per capita units, because I think that's a lot more apples and apples comparison to be able to look at it in per capita. Can compare that to, national average, state average, et cetera, which is quite useful. I did think it was really interesting that for Woodside, and I would imagine it's true for all the cities, that the dominant contribution to these reductions is because of the state level mandates.
mhm.
1.84% reduction for the town of Woodside versus 22% reduction, basically a tenfold difference between what the town itself is uniquely taking on and what the state measures will accomplish over time. I would think that's got to be true for all the towns, which doesn't minimize the part that the town itself takes on, or the fact that it has to implement what the state is mandating, which is important. But I thought that was really interesting. I also thought for Woodside that the original climate action plan said they were going to they were going to redo the climate action plan in 2020. That didn't happen. It said they were going to do new greenhouse gas inventories. And that was going to happen in 2018, but it got started in 2019 and it still isn't finished. So from their progress reports, you can see that there's things are not happening according to schedule, and I would imagine that's because it's so work intensive. I mean, there's a lot of work to pull together these
I
numbers.
think part of that issue was Woodside's Sustainability Committee fell apart.
Hmm.
And then it took them a couple years to start this new committee called Environment, Open Space, Sustainability, and something else. So part of it was Jason Mendelson left, and they had nobody else spearheading it. So kind of fell apart for a few years.
Does that imply that the committee itself was doing a big part of the heavy lifting?
That's the impression I got from reading the narrative, that
Hmm.
they kept thanking that the original sustainability committee for spearheading the whole thing, and they seem to be the ones that were involved in the updates, the annual updates somehow.
Mm-hmm. Menlo Park, I thought was just super aggressive. The 2030 goal was just completely unrealistic, and so it was what you said, Ronnie. 95% of existing buildings to be all electric by 2030. I mean, there's just no way, and so very aspirational, but the proof is going to be in the pudding of measuring it and seeing how they're doing. I did think it was good that they called out personal personal actions and personal consumption choices in the Menlo Park plan. They did say that's a big component. Now they're not tracking that, and they're not, you know, taking actions to make something happen along those lines, but they still call it out as a critical factor, personal consumption. And that's what I had. Lovey, do you want to share any thoughts?
They're very short and sweet. And I can't remember each one, but was it Menlo Park that reached out to the public for ideas, for thoughts? Did I get that right? That they had an outreach program to the public?
I think they
before
did. I don't know if they, because I spoke with that person in the Menlo Park sustainability thing, and she did describe that. And I don't know if that was part of the write-up.
I think San
uh,
Mateo did as well.
San Mateo
Who
did,
did,
yeah.
San Mateo? Okay.
Yeah,
I was just thinking, a lot of bright people live around here. And it's a way to get people more involved and thinking about things. That maybe one step to do is, before we decide on a way or a template or whatever it's going to be to, to massage the data or get the data or whatever, is to, put out a call for, public ideas on, what are your thoughts about this? And, maybe that's a way to get people personally thinking also about their own personal carbon footprint and that kind of stuff. That's my main.
Mhm.
San Mateo had a picture in theirs of the little sticky notes of ideas that they obviously had some type of, I don't know if it was absolute charrette, but they had people put ideas up on the board, and then I guess they gave everybody little dots, and then people put dots on things that they considered to be important. So that was obviously part of it. And then when you looked at their timeline, they created a draft eventually, and then that draft went for a public hearing because the public essentially was voting on whether or not they approved of having these measures put in their whatever their ordinances or something.
Yeah,
So
I
there
mean,
was,
I just, think that it's one thing if we devise something and post it and it's on, it's an ordinance and this and that, but it's kind of, to me, a lot of work. If 10 people look at it, I would like to brainstorm ways to get the community, people in the community, thinking about it and getting input from them and making it, really a community climate action plan. Because, we're different than San Mateo. We're different than Menlo Park. I mean, we in Woodside, do share more traits, but, we don't have apartment houses like San Mateo that, yes, the all electric thing, would make take a big bite out if you build a, 24 unit apartment complex or this or that. I just think I'd like to see more people get input and hopefully get fired up and then bring in new good ideas too. That's my 2 cents worth.
Right.
Mhm.
So maybe, I mean, I think it'd be good for us to talk about next steps in a minute, but maybe now would be a time we could invite, I guess both Dave and Caroline have some comments. So Dave, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, I'm all for community input. I attend a lot of committees. I think there's a way to do it without locking people out until after all the discussion, but that's up to you. As far as my material comment, I think that aside from how we score points with the state, vehicle miles traveled, I think, is huge. And we could all buy Teslas, to be honest, but 1,500 people every day come to work in Portola Valley, and not just gardeners, but people with jobs. And we have the stats. We have I can tell you where they work. And a lot of them travel from 1 to 3 hours away. And I'm pretty sure very few of them have Teslas. So to me, the big nut is affordable housing and addressing the fact that we are a huge sucking sound when it comes to people from everywhere, from Pleasanton, Gilroy, I mean, everywhere, coming here in crappy vehicles in many cases, or to this town. So I personally, to me, that's so huge compared to so many other things. I would love to see us as a sustainability community, and that the VMT guys, the HCD actually did this. They showed that our affordable housing plan, should we ever actually do it, would reduce vehicle miles traveled. So there's math. They have a really good model of this. So they've got stats. We have stats. It's not easy. I mean, but I don't know. I think that's the big thing out there. So thank you.
That's really great input. The people we cause to come here and all the driving that happens. Yeah, that's really good point, Dave. Caroline, do you have a comment or question?
Great, yeah, thank you. Thank you for opening the discussion. I agree with Laverine. We should be closer to Woodside than any other city. I am very concerned about this whole approach, the finances. As you know, California has a deficit of $68 billion. San Mateo County has, what, 63 million? Our own town has financial deficits. Grants are proposed, and I don't even know if the money is there. So I would applaud you, since we have done as much already, to look at our own resources. What I don't understand, we have Mr. Council Member Jeff Alves. So why is Woodside getting solar panels from PCE and we have not gotten it yet for our town hall? Why is the school district still using buses that are not electrified? There's so many things that we can enforce. And I'm not preaching, because I can tell you, we have solar panels, we have the batteries, we battle our own problems. I have problems with cold water, and I would like to open the discussion, because yes, you guys want to put smart meters in and the apps. Everything is with apps. We don't have internet connection. We don't have communication, or apps fail in Portola Valley. So there's a lot of practical issues in Portola Valley that you have to address before you commit to enforcing these rules. People don't want all electric because we don't have the grid to support it. People that are dependent on gas. And so you have to have a diverse communication with all the residents. And honestly, people have given up because there was no communication. There's only a few who still have the courage and the energy, but you know, it takes a lot of energy and it's a waste of our time sometimes. But we continue until we are completely burned out and we say, you know what? We told you so 10 years ago. We advised you, we gave you solutions, and you didn't do it. You know, we're trying our own things. It's a community. We have diverse experiences, and you have to acknowledge it. The person who is close to Alpine and to Portola is different than the person who lives in the hills. So you have to acknowledge. That's why we participate in volunteerism, because we want to contribute to this community. We want to share our experiences, and we want to help you succeed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I think what you're really saying is you're strongly endorsing the idea that we have to have lots of outreach to the community and listen to the community. Is that correct?
Well, you haven't done it for a while. I mean, not you, but the town council has not done it.
So,
I'm on PPDS, on the bike pedestrian. We come up with solutions, but for some reason there is no action for years. We have
So-
come up with a plan, and we had the money in place. It's with every community. I'm sorry, not community, but committee.
but I think
That-
we hear what you're saying, and I think, you know, our sphere of influence is really the Sustainability Committee. So that's a really good input, which we will take to heart.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So next steps. I guess the question for me is this. Given what, now we've read these things, we've got a much better sense of what's in them. We have an idea about how much work there is to collect the numbers and to write the narrative, which is, you know, takes a lot of work, and it's got to be historical about what PV has done and all that. Do any of us see a central role for our committee doing a bunch of this work, or is this one where I mean, I think, as I ask the question, I think I know the answer. It has to involve the town staff, right? We can't just do this on our own. We could be involved in writing certain sections. We could be involved in analyzing some of the data, but there has to be a focal point for it in the town staff.
Unless that we get budget to hire a consultant to do the RICAP's work.
Working with our committee and doing that.
Right. I mean, I think we should learn from the lesson of losing Brandy and losing all that institutional knowledge, is that we can't let just the town admin kind of sequester the information and not have access to it on a regular basis, because you can see what happens. You spent several years on it. We never ever saw it, and now we've lost it. So we can't just hand it off to any town admin person in the case we lose it all again. So
Yeah.
you know, if we do move forward with someone in the town, if they do eventually hire a replacement, then we need to be actively involved in the process.
We need to be reviewing as they go.
Yeah,
They need
I
Write us
agree.
something
We
that
were,
we review, we know where all the data is, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's possible that Jeff Alves has Brandy's work product or Sharif. And so I think we ought to go to them and ask for whatever they have so that we can, you know, now, especially now that we've seen the charts and graphs and we know what this has to look like in the end, you know, what's the state of the data that we have and the analysis that's been done so far. It would be helpful to see that. And
And Brandy was working beyond her kind of her last day to provide. She was working for a week or two, right, to provide some of all that loose end stuff. So I don't know if that included the climate action plan info or was something else. So
don't know. Do you think is Sharif the right person to go to for this? Jeff, I've
well,
had
we could
think so.
difficulty getting, you know, attention because he's so pressed. But you've talked to Sharif lately, is that right, Ronnie?
Yeah, and you know, so like I said, they just had this goal setting workshop between the town council and staff, and you know, he communicated that coming out of that, I mean, it's a priority for the town council, it's a priority for him personally, and so yeah, to me, I mean, I think the thing to do is just, yeah, probably reach out to him, just understand what they are envisioning the process being and how we can help, basically.
Yeah.
And I think certainly we could talk about the potential measures, even without the data, potential measures that we think we would want the town to do. And we could even talk about a public charrette type thing, or, you know, charrette's not the right word, but a public discussion for people who are interested in this, you know, to come and give their ideas, just like San Mateo City must have done. with their little
Post it.
sticky notes, post-it notes, yeah, so. I mean, we could sort of plan on something that for the fall or something like that, you know?
So what's the best way to proceed? Is it for a couple of us to meet with Sharif? And I tend to think that's gonna work better than just sending off an email. This is a big enough topic that, you know, it'd be nice to have his attention for, you know, 30 minutes to an hour to talk about.
I think they're so overwhelmed right now with just um, getting a new planning director hired. That I don't think they have I don't think he has bandwidth to do anything, that and the finance issue. So I think we're pressing this a little, maybe.
Too
I don't
soon.
know if the goal setting is that for next year or for this year, because the end of the year is July or June. So is this for July next 24 to 25, or what was their goal setting for the next 6 months or for the next year?
I mean, I don't know. I think something like that. I mean, it's for the up. I don't know what the deadline is, if it's December 31st or February 2025, or yeah. I think it makes sense to send Sharif an email. I mean, I maybe offer to meet with him, but like his answer may be that the approach is going to be to hire a sustainability and special projects person, and you know things will be on hold until then. But
Until then,
I don't know that
yeah.
maybe that won't be his answer. Maybe he'll have some ideas of what we could do in the meantime, or just open to whatever we want to come up with.
I think if we don't raise the issue with him, it just will never get done because they're always going to be busy. They started so far behind because they had to restaff everything, and they're always going to be too busy for this to come to the top.
I mean, it could take several years. I'm worried, and you know, I think
Yeah, and I mean, we got to start.
how vocal
And
we
it's
are as
July,
a
that's
committee
fine.
pushing for it could matter in terms of whether it's 3 years or, you know, a year and a half or 2 years. So
Just comment on that. I mean, you know, that's why I think also in parallel with that, there's no need to wait for a climate action plan to sort of continue to pursue the reach codes and, you know, whatever our reaction will be to the, you know, Berkeley ruling and constraining the all electric codes. And, you know, we need to probably adopt some new ones like other towns are doing. And so all that can, you
Everybody's
know, I think
frozen.
all that can happen like independently of having the climate action plan.
yeah, true.
Yeah, at the risk of
Yes.
speaking out of turn, I would say that to echo Ronnie's comments, if you could put something together in a package that Sharif and the town council can do something with, great. But there's fire burning their toes, right? We've got the zoning, we've got this, we've got that. They're not gonna do anything material, I don't think. So maybe, you know, you can get some money, but if you don't give them or not, I mean, you don't have to, but if you don't give them something where they can say, okay, here we have something good, and in an hour we can vote on it, their agenda is just swamped for a year, I think. So that's my thought.
Yeah, well, although I do, you know, have the impression that both the council and Sharif want to prioritize this climate action plan thing. So yeah, I think it's worthwhile just to reach out and try to understand from a practical matter what that.
Yeah, and the timing that they're envisioning for
Yeah.
what they're envisioning and what timing they're envisioning and how they're thinking that it'll be accomplished, and what role they would like sustainability to have in it. So
Right.
can I put you down, Ronnie, as a person who will send the email? Or should it come from Scott?
I was just about to ask Ronnie the same thing. Ronnie, do you want to, I mean, do you want to do this, or do you want me to do this?
I'm happy to. Maybe if I do, I would just have you on the email on
Sure.
CC.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining it's a short email.
Yeah, I think,
Um,
yeah, if you're game, I think you articulated it well, what we need to ask him. Yeah,
Okay.
great.
Yeah, I think you need to sit down with them for 30 minutes, to be honest. given that my experience meeting with them. I mean, they're so far underwater on so many things. I think get 30 minutes on his calendar and spend the time with him. And if he doesn't have 30 minutes, that's a hint.
Yeah, and given that they did put it at a relatively high priority in this recent exercise, I think to have 30 minutes to just talk it through in terms of what would go into your email, Ronnie. So leave it up to you, but if you could suggest, it'd be helpful to us to have 30 minutes of his time to just share our thoughts and hear what his ideas are about the plan going forward.
Or we could invite him to our next meeting or something, also potential.
We could do that. What do you think, Ronnie? If you're gonna do this, what do you prefer?
Maybe, how about you reach out to him? What do you think? I mean, just as the chair.
Oh, it's come back to me because you don't like the you prefer
No, no.
you had an
Uh,
approach in mind and that's fine. I mean, if you wanna do that, that's fine.
no, I don't think it's that. Yeah, maybe I don't know why I suggested that. That's fine. Yeah. Okay.
So who's
I
sending
mean,
the
I guess the
email?
email is just a combination of checking in, asking him what they
Yeah.
envision, and offering to sit down.
Yeah,
on the-
asking if
on the
he thinks it
meeting.
would be reasonable to meet for 30 minutes and just talk about
Or to come to a meeting?
because I think if we were face to face with him, I think it would be good for us to make the case that our committee could play a more active role. Yes, we might need to wait until the planning director and or the Brandy replacement is on board, but there's also value for us in seeing whatever data exists. That would be another topic for him, would be, what data does exist? What did Brandy convey before she left? Could we be looking at that? And, we'll keep it confidential, but just to be able to, understand the state of affairs. I mean, all that would be more than an email and maybe the reason why a 30-minute conversation could be good.
And to check if they've obtained Brandy's data.
Yeah,
And
Right.
maybe invite him to the next meeting. I think somebody
and
mentioned
that
that.
too. Yeah.
Just show up, yeah. So we
I
can
mean, I
all,
think it would be, I think it's actually a good idea for him to meet with all the committees. Especially since they're under his purview, so.
Yeah, when I spoke with him, he alluded to something like that, like it would be nice if if he could, attend meetings for like all 18 committees, but I feel like he hasn't had the bandwidth to do that, basically.
Yeah, if we can get 30 minutes of his time and just sort of go through these different items, I think that would be wonderful. Maybe, I would pose the 30-minute thing as would it make sense to do that?
Oh, I wouldn't. I would say, hey, we want, we're a committee. We can meet with you for a half hour and catch you up on it'd be, I don't know. I mean,
That's
obviously
fair.
he can say yes or no, but it's a no-brainer to me, given all the work you're doing. I think he'd be delighted to spend a half hour with you or an hour with you, probably.
Yep.
It just hopefully have your ducks in a row about what you think he can actually do in that half hour or hour to move your agenda forward, because he's not going to have a lot of bandwidth to get creative because he's really busy. But if you've got ideas that he can check mark or keep in mind, that'd be great.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. A plan. A plan now exists. Okay, so I think we're probably ready to close the meeting, but let's just talk for 1 second about what do we want to bring back to the agenda next time? We could just bring back all the old favorites, you know, smart meter, the HEA insert, public service announcements, and is there any other big topic? And I think, Ronnie, the maybe a significant focus next time would be the emails that you've sent talking about the electrification, ways around the apparent illegality of requiring gas to be phased out, other approaches, and does that make sense to have on the agenda?
Mhm. Yes, I think so.
Okay, we'll have that on the agenda, and we'll have the sort of the laundry list of old business when we can chime in on updates related to all those other things. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And we're gonna launch this weekend or as soon as we can after that, the green waste piece as a separate item, and we're gonna, a week or two after that, we're gonna do the same thing with the smart meter one that Lovey put together.
Yep.
All right. Any motion to close the meeting?
I
I
do.
make, yeah, I step in.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Okay, thanks, everybody.
thanks.
All right,
Thanks.
see ya.